Well, I used to drink too much, take my chances, stay in between the lines, and stay true for glances.
I play mostly solo these days, so the collaboration thing doesn't happen as much. But at the end of 2015, I played with my buddy Dylan Boyle, who's from Des Moines originally. He lives out of the state now. But we did like a 2.5 week tour together, and he's real big into a lot of the old slide guys and blues players, but he's really tasteful as well. So in like a sideman position, he does a real nice job, almost like David Lindley to Jackson Brown. Like it's that he's got that kind of a tastefulness, and those shows were really fun. We did a couple things. You know, I've got some recordings of them that I should probably release at some point because we did a couple radio things that turned out really well, and that was cool. We had hoped to do more together, and then he had to move, and logistics just didn't quite hang there. But I've also had great experiences working with like the guys that I record with, that I did this current record with, and that One Death in the Valley with as well. Down in Kentucky, there's some great players down there that if I ever had the chance and the means to make it all work and schedules aligned, it'd be awesome to actually do some shows with them, because what we've done in the studio, that collaboration's been great. They've always played really well on my stuff, and it would be awesome to do that live a few times, you know, just to get that out into the world. I'm still doing this independently, so other than some help with booking, you know, I'm pretty much doing everything. So it's a lot. I mean, I'm not here to try to have people feel sorry for me, like I've chosen to do it. It's a lot of work, but it's hard, man, for sure. It's hard, and it's hard not like moving people out of their house in 100-degree heat into a truck and transporting it across town and taking it all back out again in 100-degree heat, or working out on the highway in the summer or in the depths of winter. That's hard work. Music is hard psychologically because there's so many things you can't control about it. There's so many elements of it that are subjective, and the things that make the business work are often times requiring of the cool things to play on the back burner. So people get genericized about the business because they have to fit into the models, and the things that make it really awesome and unique oftentimes don't, because they're not as accessible. They're just not as accessible really to a larger audience. So, you know, it's like I watched an interview with Lindsey Buckingham from Fleetwood Mac once, and he was like, you know, I've got all these solo records out nobody probably knows about, but Fleetwood Mac is the reason I can make those albums. You know, he has that Fleetwood Mac to be able to do that with. Now he doesn't anymore, but, you know, he did, I should say. I don't know that, you know, you can go into this without you have to understand that, like, there's going to be things you're going to have to make decisions about, and there's certain things you're going to have to leave out if you want it to sell. You know, and you're going to have to think about, and when I say leave out, I don't mean necessarily exactly a musical thing, but even like you're going to have to think about, like, how are you going to position yourself on social media, and what kind of content are you going to make, and you have to learn how to work with video and the different formats to build that stuff, and that has to be used as creatively as your music. And the thing is, the psychological part that I was talking about before, you have things like you show up to a show that's been super well promoted and where you have fans, and you show up and like 10 people are there. And maybe you've been there before and there have been 100. But you have to be able to take those nights and play enough that those can be averaged out, just like a venue has to try to average out their month on shows that maybe don't do as well. I mean, everybody's got something in the game. It's not just the musician that's getting, you know, the low end, short end of the stick. It's not just the venue. It's not just the management. Everybody's trying to work together. But the psychological challenges of it, and the fact that you just can't control how people are going to take something that's so subjective. And the more you take away the things that are subjective, the less interesting it is. So that's when it's like you have to, because that's the part that's cool. The part that you think is terrible, but the other guy thinks is the greatest thing he's ever heard. Like, that's what makes it work. If everybody thought everything was great, it would be stupid. It would just be boring. Nobody would be doing it. So, you know, that's the part that wears on me, is just like trying to understand it at the same time that you know you can't understand it. And you have to somehow keep those contradictory elements. And the fact that, like, that there was this great speech about this stuff, actually by Springsteen, at that South by Southwest keynote he gave a number of years ago, which everybody should watch because he really, I think, just did an amazing job talking about so many different aspects of music. And he was talking about something about, to the effect of, I get touted as like being this like, voice of the everyman, the working class hero, and other guys are like, this guy's a piece of shit. And it's like, the thing is, like, both of those things are kind of true, because there is no, it's not one, it's subjective. But the trick is you have to somehow be able to keep those opposing forces of walking around thinking you're the greatest thing in the world to also walking around thinking you're a piece of shit. Somehow keep those things working against each other, because then it makes you incredibly strong. And you maintain a perspective on yourself where you don't get too big, but you also don't get too dark on yourself. You have to somehow find that middle ground. So that's the psychological battle that I think when people say music is such a hard living, to me that's really what they're saying. They don't always necessarily articulate it that way, and I think people hear hard and they think like physically hard. I mean, there are physical, things about it that definitely can be wearing, the travel and all that, and the shows are physical. But to me at least, I would say that's the part that is the grind. The biggest problem, well, these days, I think the biggest problem that I face, at least, I can only speak on my experience really, is just getting people out to shows. I mean, it's not what it was. And I haven't been doing this long enough to even have been doing it when it was what it was, as people refer to it. But I've heard the stories and sat through many conversations until 5 a.m. at venues with promoters that just wanted to get into that conversation, at people's houses. It's just a different landscape these days. And it's obvious to me why. I mean, there's a bazillion things that people have to choose to do now. I think, 30, 40 years ago, even 25 years ago, there was just less to do on a Friday or Saturday night or even during the week or whatever. Now you've got a lot more to go up against, and it's easy to feel like you're not doing something of value or that's good enough because you're maybe feeling like people are deciding to do other things instead of come see you or something. But at the end of the day, man, I mean, everybody's dealing with that. I mean, the biggest artists out right now are playing theaters that would otherwise probably be playing arenas, And the people that are playing arenas would probably otherwise be playing stadiums if it was like the 80s or 90s. So it's been reduced down. I just feel like getting people to shows is kind of the crux of it all. If you can do that consistently enough and be in a comfortable enough place, that is like the dream right now. It's not selling out, Soldier Field or something like that. It's just being able to survive at a comfortable level, take care of yourself, maybe a family, sell enough tickets to do that. It's kind of like almost being what a Major League Baseball player was before money got involved in baseball. When guys sometimes would have to work a part-time job in the off-season and they go and play. Music's kind of coming back, it's being like deflated back to that. What that does, though, I think in a good way, is it weeds people out that really don't care about it or that are doing it maybe for the wrong reasons. And if it's in you and you really don't have, you're that compelled to where you almost would feel like you don't have a choice but to do it, you'll be able to make it work, but it's not going to be some glorified thing unless you really have like an outrageous stroke of something where maybe you get something placed in a movie that really goes huge. Maybe you get, maybe you happen to play the style of music you're into just happens to catch it in a certain way, but something catches on that goes to just an unbelievable level. But otherwise, if you just look at it as a real job, and within, when I say real job, I mean like the sort of earnings and expectations and goals that just a quality job and quality standard of living can get you, I think it's there for the taking, but it's still got to sell tickets because it's not coming from music anymore. And if it is, you've got to be moving a lot of stuff, or have just like millions and millions of streams on Spotify, or be someone that actually can move like 100,000 records when they sell them or something. So that then music might bring you something. Otherwise, it's all about the show. I mean, it's like the reverse. Like baseball went from that and then was pumped full of money, and music kind of went to that level, and now it's coming back, and people are like, well, wait a second, so we have to make $45,000 a year to play music? And it's like, well, that's not actually bad. Like you're still basically getting to do like a kid's game. And I think a lot of it is like, oftentimes too, you do this long enough and you feel like you can't do anything else, and this is what you have to do. And if it's really in you, that I think that can be true. But I do think sometimes people feel like, you know, I should be able to make like $1 million doing this, and it's like, well, how can you make a statement like that? Who, you know, there's so many things that go into something being able to generate that kind of money. Deserving it is not, I think, really part of it. I mean, you can work really hard and be doing something of great value. Just because it doesn't commercially turn into something for you does not mean or suggest that you should not feel like it's valuable anymore. Some of that's just the culture we live in and the way people define success and value. But, you know, at the end of the day, everybody needs to have a certain nut covered so they can just survive and have a life and be at least somewhat comfortable. So, you know, is $45,000 or $50,000 a year playing music bad? Not for. I mean, then it's. I don't know. I would argue anybody down off that one. I think so. I mean, people do things that they cannot stand, where they're miserable because they have to do it to make a living, and I respect the hell out of people for doing that. And if I broke my hand and had to do it, or something happened, I would do it too. You know, like there's nothing wrong with it. If you get to do something you love and you can make enough money to have a comfortable enough living, there's nothing to complain about. It used to be, I want to play like Hoyt Sherman or what's the theater in town here? The Paramount. Something like that in 30 markets. I've sort of chiseled that down, and I'm like, you know what, that would be great, but that even is like a pipe dream. Like, you know, I'd be happy with just a couple hundred people every night. That would be amazing. Well, I would like to think if I did a good job, the music would answer all that. You know, I mean, for me personally, what it is that I am after, I write with a very socially conscious mind. I think music and songwriting in particular, for me, again, to go back to what we were saying earlier, is a way to sort of break down a lot of very complicated and complex ideas in my brain and things that I see going on, and it's my way to sort through that and make whatever sense of it I can. I choose to put it out through music and through my songs because that's a process of cleansing for me, and the hope from that point is that maybe somebody else will find something in that either helps them in some way or maybe challenges them in some way, which is also help, even though it might be seen as a negative thing. So if somebody were to hear like this current album in 50 years, and they also were like aware of kind of what was going on in the world at this time, you know, of 2016 to 2020 or so, I think this record would represent at least where I was at that time, what I saw going on, the things that I saw people dealing with, the things that I was dealing with myself, in the various narratives throughout the record.
The stories that your grandparents would tell you will be softened by memory and nostalgia. The good times and good people in their hearts. But I can't promise that you will always be safe. I can't promise you won't be subjected to hate. I can only hope you don't mix with the heartless. Don't get scared by the American darkness. Gunfire in the wee hours at a nightclub. Bullets and broken hearts scattered in blood. gets divided and a new commotion starts. I can hear the distant banging of the gavels. I can hear the cry to protect us from ourselves. I can only hope you don't mix with the heartless. Don't get lost in the American darkness. And I'm gonna try to show you all the shades of light. We're gonna be counting on you to do what's right. Little girl, dream big tonight. And if you wake up to the banging of the gavels, you gotta follow the cry to protect us from ourselves. You gotta follow the cry to protect us from ourselves. Promise me you won't mix with the heartless. And you won't get jammed by the American dark.